Stitch Cuties, I'm Brittany with Stitches of Love Quilting, and in this tutorial we are going to make this adorable pin cushion in the hoop of our embroidery machine. This is your welcome kit if you are doing the Garden Moments block of the month with access to embroidery files. So in your welcome kit, you're going to have your full pattern, which has step-by-step instructions. You're going to have a placement guide, and you'll have all of your fabrics. So what you'll want to do is go to the first page of your pattern, and you are going to start your fabrics, and then you are going to cut everything to size. So you can see I have my applique background fabric, I have my backing fabric, I have my border fabric cut, and then I did, what's not included in your kit is your fusible batting. I did go on and cut the pieces that I need for that. Now, to download your embroidery files every month, you're going to visit stitchesoflovequilting.com, log into your account. So you'll click on my account, log in, and then you will click on memberships, and then you will click on Garden Wellies and view a page that has access to your embroidery files, which will be updated every month as you progress through the club. So let's get started. I'm going to give you some tips on what I have set up. So when you have your prefused laser cut applique pieces in your kit, you have a fun little pile of all of your pieces. What I recommend doing is going through and labeling them what number they are. Now, as you get more familiar with using the laser cut pieces, if possibly this is your first block of the month with us, you don't necessarily need to label them every month. You'll kind of just know what piece is what. But let me give you a little tip. So the placement guide right here is the guide that's going to stitch in your embroidery machine ultimately. And then down here we have the reverse applique pieces. So what you're going to do with the pieces that you get in the mail, you can see all your pieces are laser cut, except for a little bitty piece you need to snip free on each one. But these are reversed, so that means you're gonna lay it with the fusible side up. We have made it very easy when we have pieces that are very alike or similar. We group it together, and then the way that I have it arranged on your plate, on your reverse applique pieces matches exactly this. So it's very easy to just write your numbers down and know which piece is which when you're talking about the little dots on your project. Once you have them all labeled, then you can snip them free. And what I recommend doing is reading in the pattern. I think it always helps to read ahead, right? And know what you're gonna do. You will read ahead and know the order you're gonna iron your pieces on. I like to lay those in order. So for example, the first two pieces we're gonna put down is piece number 1 and piece number 2. So I know I'm gonna put 1 down first and then 2 down next. So I have a numerical order pile of all of my pieces, and I just set that off to the side so that I don't have to think as much while I'm doing my project. So what we're gonna do first, just like the instructions say, we are going to stitch the back of our project first. So the 2 pieces of fabric that we're gonna work with right now, we'll set the background and the borders and 1 piece of the batting aside. We are gonna need our background fabric, which is already cut for you in your kit. You don't have to cut it, you just need to iron it and starch it. And then you have your piece of fusible batting cut. And I recommend using fusible batting for this project because it really does just make everything stay in place better during your project. And I do want to tell you that you have your 8x12 hoop, and we are going to load it by default always with the Sulky Tear Easy stabilizer. So just like this, it's a great stabilizer. Now, as we progress through actually making the quilt, there are 4 different blocks, and then also on the borders where we're gonna use the sticky version of this stabilizer when we're doing repositioning. But for this project right now, you just need, for the welcome kit, you just need the regular Tear Easy stabilizer. In front of me, in front of my embroidery machine, I always like to have my Steady Betty, because that way I can take my hoop off my machine and simply put it right here to iron my applique pieces in place. And I iron that with my Steam Fast travel iron. I love this little guy, it's fantastic. I also like to have beside me my 3M transport tape. Let me hold that where you can see it. I just ordered this online from Amazon. You get a pack of it. It's a great, easy to use tape that holds my fabric in place. Again, you can use any kind of tape you want to hold your fabric in place. I like to have my Karen K. Buckley scissors. These are medium. This is my personal favorite size. But they do make a smaller one and a larger one. So if you can only pick one pair, my recommendation is the medium, but of course pick the size that you love the most. And then I do like to have my Alex Anderson 4-in-1 tool. So what I use the most when I'm doing Embroidery Machine Applique, if I'm turning something, which we will in this project, I use this to turn my corners. And then sometimes when I'm working with a little piece to hold it down instead of possibly burning my finger as I'm ironing a piece, I use the little stiletto. And then of course it does have a little edge for pressing, and it does have a seam ripper, but we won't need that today. And then another thing I like to have as part of my quote unquote perfect stack, I have my cutting mat. And then of course I have a ruler and a rotary cutter that we'll use as we're trimming during this project. Okay, so let's get started. Oh, I almost forgot. You need to have your thread kit of your 40 weight threads. They're sulky 40 weight threads. And we have a Garden Moments thread kit that's curated specifically for this quilt. So the first color we're gonna load on our machine is the 1045 light teal. And we are going to load the embroidery file for the back of our project because that's what we're gonna stitch first. So let's load this thread, let's load that file and start the first step. Okay, so you have one square stitched in the center of your hoop. Now I always put my hoop sideways on top of my Steady Betty so it has the most support, also fits nicely in the camera for you. So you always want to pay attention to the direction of your file and the direction of your hoop. For this particular step, that doesn't matter, but I did want to mention it so you just have that in the back of your mind as you progress through this or any other project. So with this square, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my fusible batting. One side is soft, one side has that webbed texture. The webbed texture side is the side with that fusible batting. We are going to put it face up directly in the center of this square. If you have any fuzz, grab that off. And then what I'm gonna do is take my background fabric and plop it right over. Now this piece is way bigger than you need it to be, so you just simply need to make sure it's going over on all of the sides. Ultimately, you're gonna need to make sure you have a 1/4 inch on all 4 sides. And what I'm gonna do is take some tape, and I'm just gonna put some tape in the corners to hold it in place. And then I am gonna take my iron and fuse that fusible batting to my fabric, being careful not to pull my iron and move the contents. I'm gonna pick it up as I go around, and then I'm also gonna make sure that I don't iron on that tape I just placed, because that would not be good. So simply just pick it up a little bit instead of pulling it. And that fuses the fusible batting directly to your fabric. So now there's only one more step for making the back of our pincushion. Super simple project. So we're gonna keep that 1045 on our machine. When we put this back on, the machine is going to quilt the back of our project. It's also gonna give us a trim line that ultimately is a 1/4 inch past our fusible batting. And just like that, the back of your pincushion is quilted. So what you will do is take this out of the hoop. We're gonna set it aside, and I'll show you how to trim it towards a little bit later in the project as we're finishing this off. So we're gonna set that aside. We're gonna re-hoop our same stabilizer, but now we're gonna load the white thread onto our machine, and we're gonna load the embroidery file for the front of our project, and let's get started. Okay, so the first step that your machine stitches for the front of your pincushion is the square centered in the middle. And we're gonna do just like we did for the back. Just one little difference is the size of the ultimate fabric that we're putting on. But we're gonna take our fusible batting, fusible side up, centered right here. Then we are gonna take our starched background fabric that's cut to size, and we're going to center it over. And you're gonna have just a little bit of overhang on all 4 sides. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a press before I tape it, only because I don't have excess fabric past that fusible batting, and I don't want to iron on that tape. So just hold it in place as you do that. And then just lift the corner, make sure you're still in place, that you haven't moved your fabric or anything. Okay, and now what we're gonna do is put just a little bit of tape, just like we did for the back, in the 4 corners. And we're gonna keep that white thread on for quite a bit. And so our machine now will move on to the next step for us. So now in your hoop, your background is quilted and you have 2 applique outlines. So we're gonna start by ironing piece number 1 in place. I'm gonna go on and take my tape off because, again, I don't wanna accidentally iron on it and get my iron all sticky. So do remove your tape, maybe a little more gracefully than me. There we go. And a piece over here in the corner. There we go. And right over here. So all of your pre-fused laser cut applique pieces fit perfectly inside of the stitched lines. So it's gonna go right along the bottom, left and right, and then you'll be able to see right here, follow the curve, and make sure that it's perfectly in place. I do recommend making sure that you have good light in your workspace. I think that definitely helps. And then iron this right in place. Now we're gonna take piece number 2, which is a pink piece of our boot, and just make sure that it's lined up everywhere. It's very easy to put in place since they're the same line. And if you ever get a piece, maybe not exactly where you want it, while it's still hot, just take your little tool, and it hasn't set yet, right? So you can just kind of manipulate it into place and make sure you have it where you want it. And once you get it where you want it, if you had that happen, give it a quick press again, you're totally good to go. So we're gonna continue with the white thread. The machine is now going to do our next set of applique outlines, which are the dots on this first part of the boot, the black sole of the boot, and then it's gonna outline the second boot for us. Okay, take a look at your applique outlines. We're going to iron them down in numerical order. So we will start with this top right little dot. And so the edge is gonna line up perfectly with the edge of your boot right here. So again, very easy to get into place. This is where possibly you might wanna open up and use your stiletto to hold your piece in place so that when you actually go to iron, you don't burn your finger. So get it right in place. Take your stiletto if you want, just to hold it. There we go. And now we have the little dot on the front of the boot. And again, the edge is gonna line up perfectly. The little curved edge will line up perfectly with your dot. Then we are gonna do piece number 6, which is the bottom of our boot, right there. There you go. And now piece number 7, the large boot. The boot doesn't go all the way down to the brown because we're gonna have that charcoal piece of fabric go there for the bottom of this boot. So give that a press. There we go. So now we're ready to continue on to the next step. So again, keep that white thread on your machine. The machine is now going to give you the outline of all the fun dots on this second boot. It's going to give you an outline of one leaf and then of course the bottom of this boot. Okay, so we're ready to iron on the next round of applique pieces. So we're just gonna start in the top right, work our way down in numerical order, and then also put on the leaf. So grab your piece. Again, the edge is gonna line up perfectly. So you'll be able to tell if you have it pointed the wrong direction. Again, this is a great time to have that stiletto. So see, the line follows perfectly. So, I moved it. Uh-oh. There we go. There we go. Had my stiletto poked in there just a bit too much, didn't I? And then again, if it's in the wrong spot or you want to wiggle it a little while it's still hot, just give it a wiggle. Now our next piece is a full circle, very easy to put on. There we go. Now we'll move down to this piece. And I will say with the small pieces, and well, all of your pieces, make sure you have the fusible side down. I will say though, on the small pieces, sometimes it's easy to think you have the fusible side down. So just pay attention. The fusible side you'll see is shiny, right? See how that's shiny? And then the fabric is fabric. And put this piece right in place. Now we have another full circle. And then we'll do the little dot on the front of our boot. I think I'm having a lot of fun saying the word boot. Boot. And again, make sure you have that lined up just so. It's gonna follow the curve of the shoe. Ooh, I am poking that stiletto in today, aren't I? Ooh, I pulled it. Be careful, don't do what I did. I pulled my little piece. And now we're gonna put our next full circle right here. And then the corner dot, you'll notice it's got a little cutout angle, and then the two edges, that's gonna line up perfectly with the bottom left corner of your boot. And then of course the curve follows that stitched line. And then we're gonna put the sole of our boot. I'm gonna say boot as many times as I can, I feel, in this tutorial. These are Garden Wellies, actually. I guess I should be saying on the wellies. There we go. And then our first leaf will go right in place. Perfect. All right, so now again, continue with that white thread. The machine is now gonna give us an outline for our second leaf and then our pretty pink flower. Okay, so now we have those next two pieces outlined. I'm so excited. I love watching all of the pieces come together and make our cute project. So this leaf comes right up to the brown, but not quite touching. So just make sure you have your leaf in the right place, give it a press. And now I have a fun little trick with the flower to show you. And see, look, I wiggled a little. So there you go, just wiggle it back in place, give it a press. This little tool is helpful, isn't it? And then with our pink flower, let me show you what I did. I used my placement guide and I put this directly on the placement guide, right? So I have my piece, just like this, whichever way. Let's see, where's my arrow? There we go. So I put it on here and then I just simply flipped it over and I drew an arrow pointing up so that I don't have to turn it again over here. So a fun little trick, you can use your placement guide. So see, that way I know which is up. So while I have my arrow pointing up, I'm just gonna remove the piece from the back. And that way I knew I had my flower facing the right way. You don't have to do that. It's just a fun little trick to make it even easier to identify the direction your piece goes. And give that a press. Now we have one more applique outline, and that is for our flower center. And now that center is stitched. It's a perfect circle. So there's no right or wrong way to put this little guy in. So now the remaining steps of stitching our applique, we are going to do a color change through stitching the applique. I'm gonna take my hoop on and off so I can bring it in front of the camera and talk to you about the thread colors. For you at your machine, you're not gonna need to take your hoop on and off. And you'll see that I give you a little icon that tells you keep your hoop on, keep your hoop on, keep your hoop on. Okay, so the first color that we are going to load is our medium tawny tan, and the machine is going to stitch our cute little dirt in place. Okay, so now the brown is stitched, looks super cute. You'll notice it's only stitched across the top because you are gonna have your seams cover the bottom and left and right edge of your brown piece. Next, we're gonna load the 1307, and the machine is going to stitch all this hot pink. So it's gonna go around the pink portion of your boots and of course your flower center. Look how cute the pink looks stitched. I love it. So now we're going to load the 0567 Butterfly Gold, and all of the cute little dots on your Garden Wellies will be stitched. Okay, so now all of your cute little dots are stitched. Now it's time to load the black thread, and your machine is going to stitch the bottom of both of your cute little boots. And now the bottom of your boots are stitched. So cute. Now we're gonna load the avocado, and the machine is going to stitch a buttonhole stitch around the outside of your leaves and also do a nice triple stitch to give you that accent line on the leaves. And now take a look, so cute. I love the leaves. Now we're gonna load the 1256. This is the last step of the actual applique stitching, and then after that we'll start building our pincushion in the hoop. But the machine is gonna stitch around your cute flower. All right, take a look. So all of the applique stitching is completed and your little boot looks so cute, your Garden Wellies. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna change to the white thread on our machine, and now we're gonna start building our pincushion. So what you're gonna do first is take your two shorter borders, so your left and right border, you're gonna put it right side down, so you have right sides together, and you're gonna line this up with the left top and bottom of this stitch square, right? So see where your quilting ends? That's where you're gonna put this piece. And then your second piece you're gonna put on the right side, right in place. And we're gonna do a little bit of tape. So some right here, some right here, right up top. And then your machine is gonna go down and then over and up. So I like to do just a little bit of tape right here so that it doesn't get caught on the foot of my machine. But do pay attention when it gets to that spot. You're gonna watch your machine and make sure it doesn't catch anywhere. All right, so let's load that white thread and sew a seam. Okay, so now you have 2 1/4-inch seams. You're gonna simply fold your borders out and tape them into place. Easy peasy, we're assembling our pin cushion. I'm gonna give it a press, don't iron on your tape though. But I'm gonna give that a press so it's nice and in place. On the edges is where I put my tape. Now you're gonna keep the white thread on your machine, you're gonna put this on, and what it's gonna do is give you a guideline right here across the top and bottom so we know where to place our top and bottom borders. Okay, so now it's time to place our next borders in place. I'm gonna remove my tape because again, I always wanna make sure I'm not gonna iron on my tape through any step. And then I'm gonna take my top border and make sure that it's going past the outside right here. And you line it right up with your seam here so that you get your 1/4-inch seam allowance. Remember that quilted square from the beginning? We're lining right up with that edge. And then the same, and again, right sides together, right? So you're gonna have the wrong side facing up towards you. And we'll do that same thing right here. So put your white thread, or keep your white thread on rather, and now the machine is going to give you a seam line for your top and bottom border. Okay, so we're almost done. This is going really fast, isn't it? So now I'm gonna remove this tape from my borders, and we're gonna press these borders out just like we did with the left and right. And then we're gonna tape them into place as they're pressed out, and then we'll go on to the next step. All right, so pull this out and then just press this. Oh, look, I missed a piece of tape. There we go, and press this up. Again, if you want, you can use this little edge of your 4-in-1 before you get your iron out, or you can just finger press it too. But see how nice and cute this is looking? Oh my gosh, you guys, wait till the borders are quilted. That's coming up right now after we tape this into place. Oh my gosh, I love it. And you'll love watching it quilted because all your quilting lines into your borders are gonna line up with the quilting on the inside. I know, so cool, right? So put some tape in place. And again, we're gonna keep the white thread because it's gonna quilt. If you wanted to use a different color thread for your quilting, by all means do so, but I do like the white just to flow in and keep it matching. So here we go. Okay, this is so exciting. Look at your perfect quilting. Oh my gosh, I love it. So now your borders are quilted. So you're gonna keep this in the hoop. I'm gonna set it aside, but again, make sure not to distort the contents of your hoop. And we're gonna come back to our backing and we're gonna trim it. And then we are gonna put this face down on top of our project in the hoop, and it's going to sew the pieces together so that we can then unhoop it after that step and turn it right side out and stuff our pin cushion. So what I'm doing is just trimming on all 4 sides. And I just have my cutting mat right in front of me. This is the cutting mat that goes with my light pad. I love it. And then any ruler will work, and your favorite rotary cutter. And then a final trim. Now you do want to pay attention to the direction of your quilting. They're more of a diamond than a like perfect square crosshatch. It's like a diamond crosshatch, I guess you could call it. So when we put this in place, I want it to match the direction of the quilting on my project. So take a look at the hoop, right? The diamonds are kind of long ways this way, short ways this way. So I'm gonna take this and orient it the same direction for my quilting, right? See, diamonds go that way. I'm going to flip this over, and what you're gonna do is simply line this trimmed piece up with the stitched outline of your quilting. Now, I am gonna wait and take the stabilizer out until I turn it. It's just as easier to me. I don't have to worry about distorting anything. And this stabilizer is very easy to tear out. So now that it's lined up perfectly, just take your tape and put it in place. Where your machine is going to stitch is right along the outside or on the batting for your 1/4-inch seam allowance. It's gonna leave an opening down here so that you can easily turn your project. And I will tell you, turning is the part where it's like, oh, you feel like you're hurting your project, but you're not. This little guy can withstand the turning. All right, and again, I'm gonna keep the white thread on my machine. There we go, let's go on to that final step. Okay, so now everything is stitched. You can see where it's stitched. It did a triple stitch, right? Because I want it to be sturdy for you. So it goes from the middle or the left side on the bottom all the way around and then ends right here. So this little opening right here is gonna be where you turn it. And then when you whip stitch it closed, this little bit will immediately flip in. So let me just show you how to trim it, and then you'll be good to go. And you will have completed your project and be ready to fill it with your stuffing of choice. So I'm gonna get my ruler back over here and I'm gonna trim just along the edge of my piece. So right, I have a 1/4 inch between my batting and where I'm trimming on that outer stitched square. And we're just gonna cut on all 4 sides and trim it down. Oh my gosh, such a cute project. I hope that you've had a lot of fun making this. This is good practice for kind of quilting in your hoop if maybe it's something new for you. It's a lot of fun. And so every month I'll have a video just like this where we stitch along together and go along just like the pattern does. There we go. So I would, before I turn it, let me get my trash out of the way. Before I turn this, I would take the time to peel my stabilizer just because it's really stiff when you turn it if you don't take that stabilizer out. It is possible, I will tell you, I didn't take the stabilizer out when I turned this guy and it's just fine, but I do think it's worth the time to take your stabilizer out. So this is the inside of your little project. It is perfect and flawless and tidy, and I just love it. So once you turn it right side out, where this little bottom is, I'll show you, we whip stitched it closed. So what we did is we filled it with crushed walnut shells. You can get them from a pet store. They're actually sometimes referred to as lizard litter or lizard grit, but it's crushed walnut shells. And we filled it all the way till about here on it, so about the bottom of the boots. And then we put wool roving, or you could use polyfill for this last little bit so that it's easy to hold closed and do a nice little whip stitch right here to whip stitch it closed. You can of course stuff it with whatever you want. You can use polyfill, wool roving, whatever it is that's your favorite thing to stitch. So I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial and are looking forward to your first box. If you're not a member of Garden Moments, don't hesitate to join. It's gonna be so much fun to sew along together. Happy stitching!